The alliance of the imprisoned spirits. Have you ever felt like something is watching you? I'm not talking about a simple feeling. I'm talking about a cold gaze, coming from a place where time seems to have stopped. The old chapel in the city center, which everyone avoids, hides more than just cracked stone walls. They say that anyone who dares to enter never returns. And those who do come back are never the same. Clara and her friends, bold and skeptical, decided to explore what no one else dared to uncover. But as they approached the rusty door, something made them hesitate. A shiver down their spines, a cold breath cutting through the wind. "Don't you feel it?" "Something is wrong here," Lucas whispered, but it was already too late. The door creaked, and the past swallowed them whole. "And you? Have you ever thought of facing what no one else would dare?" Inside the chapel, the darkness seemed to swallow the light from their lanterns. The silence was heavy, suffocating. And on the altar, something was waiting for them. A golden ring, reflecting the faint glow of the moon filtering through the cracks in the broken windows. Clara, intrigued, approached. As her fingers touched the ring, a distant scream echoed in her mind. The once calm wind now howled, and a whispering voice filled the air. "You now belong to us." The ground trembled, as if something underground had awoken. Terror took hold of them, but they could no longer escape. The door slammed shut with a bang. What awaited them there? Were they just shadows, or something even darker? The sound of the wind and the whispering voices continued to echo as Clara struggled to remove the ring from her finger. But the pain, a deep pain that surged up her arm, immobilizing her strength. Lucas's face was pale, his eyes now glazed, staring at her in fear, but without words. "Anna, did you hear that?" Her voice trembled. The words made no sense, as if the air was distorting reality. The windows broke on their own, revealing shadowy figures around the chapel, their hooded silhouettes moving slowly, as though they were summoning something. "The ring has been sealed," they said in unison. Something was calling them, something that couldn't be denied. What were these shadows? Spirits? Or something even more sinister? The ground trembled violently. The air, once heavy, was now dense, almost impenetrable. The earth opened beneath Clara and her friends, revealing a black hole, like a hungry mouth. The shadows crawled up the walls, becoming more visible, more tangible. They seemed to feed off their fear. Pedro screamed, trying to run, but an invisible force pulled him toward the abyss. Clara reached out to grab him, but her fingers passed through him as if he were mist. They were trapped. What was happening? Would they be trapped there forever? Or consumed by the shadows watching them? What did they want from them? What had the ring done to them? The air was filled with screams and wails. The walls bled a black substance, as if the chapel were alive, feeling the pain of their presence. Clara, desperate, looked at Anna, but her face was distorted, lifeless, her eyes without eyelids. "We are no longer us," a grotesque voice whispered from within her. The ring burned Clara's skin, as if she were merging with the evil itself. "We have to leave." Lucas screamed, but the door had vanished, as if it had been swallowed by the chapel itself. Fear consumed them, but more than fear, there was a feeling of inevitability. What would happen to them now? The chapel seemed to have come alive. Who were these figures watching them? Who were the shadows taking shape around them? A scream cut through the air, but it wasn't the sound of a human being. It was something much deeper, primal. Clara tried to resist, but the hooded figures approached, floating as though levitating. "You don't understand. This was always the fate of those who dared to wake the forgotten," they said, their voices cut off by the wind. The ceiling collapsed, revealing a starless black sky, and a presence made the shadows stir. A guttural sound reverberated through the chapel, and Clara felt something massive crawling in the darkness. What were these entities? Where did they come from? What did they want from them? The biting wind made Clara's heart race. She saw the shadows moving, twisting above her. "You accepted the pact," one of the hooded figures said, its voice a deadly whisper. Anna was writhing on the floor, her skin tearing, as if her body were disintegrating. Clara tried to scream, but her voice was lost in the air, muffled by the roar of the wind. The ring on Clara's finger disappeared with a blue glow, dissolving into the air. Her friends, one by one, disappeared, swallowed by the shadows. What was happening to them? Were they trapped souls? Or something else? Clara was alone. The silence took over the chapel, but it wasn't the silence of peace, it was the silence of a mortal weight. The ground cracked open, revealing a city submerged in shadows, covered by a dense, sinister fog. Faceless figures walked in circles, as if they were trapped in an eternal cycle. The dark, cold water reflected Clara's image, but her reflection was no longer hers. Something inside her was changing, something evil. They were the ancient bearers of the ring, a voice whispered. Clara tried to scream, but her voice was drowned by the dark waters. What was she seeing? Another dimension? Or just an eternal prison for those who dare challenge evil? What was happening to her? Was she becoming one of the hooded figures? The submerged city was filled with screams, but Clara no longer knew who was making them. She ran through the narrow streets, trying to escape, but the shadows followed her. Surrender, and the end will be painless, the voices whispered, as if trying to calm her. Clara fell before a familiar figure, Pedro. But he was pale, lifeless, his eyes empty. "You don't understand, Clara. There's no escape," he said, before disintegrating into smoke. The city, the figures, everything was closing in around her. What was real? And what was an illusion created by the shadows? And if there was no way back for her? Clara opened her eyes and found herself back in the chapel, but now she was no longer the same. What happened to me, she thought, but she soon knew. Her reflection in the mirror was no longer hers. Something possessed her. The ring now glowed on her skin, like an indelible mark. She had been chosen to be the new guardian, condemned to wait for the next fool who dared to approach. Outside, new adventurers were drawing near, and the cycle was about to begin again. Clara's story would just be another urban legend. But what about you? Would you be ready to face what she faced? Or would you be just another victim of the evil that haunts that place? Do you believe this is just a story? What if you were, in fact, being watched right now? What would you do if the ring were within your reach? Clara's story never ends. Now, you have a choice: ignore it, or subscribe, like, and share with those who believe that no evil is unbeatable. But remember, the game never ends. Who will be the next to try to break the curse? Share your thoughts in the comments. The truth is never what it seems.
Have you ever experienced something unexplainable and terrifying? A supernatural encounter, a real event that left you speechless, a chilling moment that shook you to your core, or witnessed something so macabre it still sends shivers down your spine? Your story could be the next to haunt the world. The most frightening, intriguing, and mysterious tales could be featured on the channel, immortalized for other horror lovers with all the suspense and terror they deserve. Your experience could be the next to captivate thousands. Do you dare to share?